The wind howled through the streets of our small, sleepy town as I sat in the dim light of our living room, poring over the month's expenses. The numbers didn't add up. It wasn't just a missing 20 here or a forgotten 50 there, thousands were unaccounted for. I rubbed my temples, the weight of suspicion darkening my mood. Another late night, Mark? Julie's voice, light and seemingly innocent, cut through the silence. Just trying to make sense of our finances, I said without looking up. The screen glowed ominously, reflecting the growing gap in our accounts. She leaned over the back of the couch, her hands gently resting on my shoulders. "You work too hard," she murmured, her breath warm against my ear. But her usual scent of jasmine was tainted, faintly laced with something chemical. I forced a smile, turning to meet her gaze. "I could say the same for you, always out these days." Julie straightened, her smile faltering. "Just picking up extra shifts. You know how it is." She drifted away, her figure a shadow against the flickering TV in the next room. As the days rolled on, more oddities emerged. Jewelry, my late mother's watch, even some of Julie's own belongings disappeared. Every inquiry met with vague excuses or feigned surprise. Enough was enough. One chilly morning, I decided to follow her. She didn't head towards the hospital where she worked. Instead, she slipped through the quieter streets, her steps hurried, almost desperate. I kept my distance as she entered a rundown pawn shop, the kind of place with barred windows and a reputation. Inside, I watched hidden behind a shelf, as she handed over a bag, the same one I had bought her last Christmas. The man behind the counter, greasy-haired and beady-eyed, didn't even count the items as he handed her a wad of cash. I followed her next to a derelict building, its windows boarded, the walls spray-painted with graffiti. Heart pounding, I peeked through a cracked door. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the sour tang of despair. Julie was there, not as an observer, but as a part of this grim world. A man with sunken eyes and a crooked grin pulled her close. They exchanged a quick, passionate kiss before he handed her a small packet. "I told you, don't be afraid. It's a great thing." His voice was a raspy whisper. The sight of it, my wife, the woman I had loved and trusted, entwined with a junkie, shattered something inside me. Retreating silently, I staggered back to the safety of my car. The cold realization settled in, Julie was lost to me, swallowed up by a world I couldn't understand. But how deep did this betrayal run? What drove her to this darkness? I knew what I had to do. Driven by a blend of heartbreak and rage, a plan began to form, a way to reclaim what was lost, to settle the score. But first, I needed proof. I needed to understand the full extent of Julie's deception. As I drove away, my mind raced with the impending confrontation. But there was something more troubling than the betrayal, the fear of what lay ahead for both of us. I had to act, and act soon, before this shadow consumed us both. The following morning, as the town stirs under a blanket of frost, I find myself parked outside the shabby pawn shop, waiting. My hands grip the steering wheel, each passing minute stretching longer than the last. The shop sign flickers to life as a man unlocks the front door. It's not the same man from yesterday, this one is taller, with a cautious look about him. As I push through the door, a bell jingles sharply overhead. The man glances up, a practiced smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Can I help you?" "I hope so," I say, approaching the counter, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'm looking for some items that might have been pawned here. They're sentimental." He sizes me up, his gaze lingering a moment too long. "Lots of items come through here. You got a description or something?" As I list the missing items, his eyes flicker with recognition, but he shakes his head. "Haven't seen any of these, sorry." I lean closer, my tone dropping to a whisper. "They're very important to me. Maybe this could help jog your memory?" Slipping a few bills across the counter, I watch his expression change. He pockets the money, then jerks his head towards the back room. "Follow me." We navigate through narrow aisles cluttered with forgotten treasures and discarded lives until we reach a cluttered office. He pulls out a box, and there they are, my mother's watch, Julie's necklace. I feel a mix of relief and fury. As I gather the items, he leans against the door frame. Seems like you got bigger problems than missing trinkets. I pause, the items heavy in my hands. What do you mean? Your lady, the one who brought these in, she's mixed up with some bad types. More than just junkies. If you're smart, you'll let this go. I clench the watch tightly. I can't just let it go. He studies me for a moment, then nods slowly. There's a guy goes by the name of Leo. He's the one you want to talk to if you're going down this path. Be careful, though. He's not the forgiving type. Back in my car, the weight of his words settles around me. I look at the items in my passenger seat, the tangible remnants of a life unraveling. I start the engine, my resolve hardening. I need to find Leo. The address leads me to a dilapidated warehouse on the edge of town. The building looms, a silent giant among faded industrial relics. I approach cautiously, the earlier pawnbroker's warning echoing in my mind. A figure detaches itself from the shadows as I near the entrance. Can I help you? I'm looking for Leo, I say, trying to sound more confident than I feel. The figure steps into the light, revealing a broad-shouldered man with a scar tracing down his left cheek. You found him. What do you want? I need to understand why my wife is involved with all this. I gesture vaguely, encompassing the shadowy world into which Julie has fallen. Leo's eyes narrow, assessing. It's a long story. Maybe you should ask her. I intend to, but first, I need the whole picture. I think you can help me with that. Leo studies me for a moment longer, then nods slowly. All right, come inside. But watch your step, loyalties are thin on the ground here, and trust is even thinner. As we step into the cold, echoing space of the warehouse, I brace myself for what's to come. Each step feels like moving deeper into a maze, each turn revealing more about the life Julie has chosen, or that has chosen her. The storm is gathering, and I am in its path. The interior of the warehouse is a stark contrast to the bleak exterior. Neon lights flicker, casting eerie shadows over the makeshift partition scattered throughout the vast space. The air is filled with a mix of sharp chemical scents and the low buzz of hushed conversations. Leo leads me through a labyrinth of crates and draped tarps, his steps sure and unhesitating. We stop before a heavy metal door. Leo knocks in a complex pattern, waits for a moment, and then pushes the door open when a muffled voice grants permission from inside. The room beyond the door is dimly lit, with a large table dominating the center. Maps and various electronic devices are strewn across it. Several tough-looking individuals glance up as we enter. Their eyes narrow, not with curiosity, but suspicion. Everyone, this is Mark, Leo introduces me with a gesture that's more a warning than a welcome. He's here for a personal matter. Needs to understand the lay of the land regarding his wife, Julie. A woman at the table, her hair pulled back into a tight braid, eyes me critically. Julie's been a useful runner for us. What's the husband doing here, Leo? I just want to find out what's happening with her. Why she's involved in all this, I say, trying to project calmness despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Leo nods to the woman. Tess, show him. Tess sighs, then pulls out a laptop, opening a security footage folder. The screen flickers, and then displays Julie, looking nervous as she exchanges small packages with shadowy figures in various rundown locations. Julie's in deep because of debt, Tess explains without taking her eyes off the screen. Started with a few harmless deliveries to pay off what she owed. Then she got hooked on the product. Classic tale around here. My heart sinks as I watch the love of my life disappear deeper into this dark world. How do I get her out? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. That's your journey to figure out, but you'll need leverage and a lot of courage, Leo says, turning to face me squarely. We don't normally entertain family drama, but Julie was one of our reliable ones. We can help, but only if you're sure. There's no stepping back once you're in. What do you need from me? I ask, feeling the weight of my decision. Leo and Tess exchange a look, and then Leo speaks. There's a rival group pushing us out of key territories. Help us deal with them, and we help you with Julie. A cold fear grips me, but the desperation to save Julie propels me forward. What would that involve? We need someone who can move without raising suspicion, someone new. You'll be our eyes on the ground, Tess interjects, closing the laptop with a snap. I nod, understanding the dangers, but driven by the need to rescue Julie from this life. I'll do it. Leo claps a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm. Welcome to the fray, Mark. Get ready, it's going to be a rough ride. As we leave the room, the weight of my commitment settles in. I'm now part of the very world that swallowed Julie. But unlike her, I have a mission, to pull her out of this abyss. We walk back through the warehouse, the neon lights now casting long, sinister shadows that mirror the darkness creeping into my soul. Tonight, I crossed a line from which there might be no return, all in the name of love. The storm isn't just coming, it's here, and I'm right at its center. The weeks that followed my agreement with Leo were a blur of shadowy figures and clandestine meetings. My life had taken on the cloak and dagger quality of a spy novel, each day fraught with the tension of my double life. I gathered information on the rival gang, relayed messages, and played the part of a loyal foot soldier, all while keeping my eyes peeled for any sign of Julie. Finally, Leo summoned me to a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. We've got a meeting with the other side tonight, he said, his voice low and serious. This could end our troubles or start a war. You'll be there, as our guarantee. Why me? I asked, although a part of me already knew the answer. Because you're the unknown, Leo replied, handing me a compact handgun. You're not yet marked by their side. And they don't know you're Julie's husband. The gravity of the situation settled on my shoulders like a lead weight. That night, under the cover of darkness, we entered an abandoned factory. The meeting was already in progress, the air thick with tension. The leader of the rival gang, a tall man with a scar running down his face, was mid-sentence when we walked in. His eyes flicked to me, narrowing slightly. Who's the new face? Just insurance, Leo replied smoothly. As they resumed their heated negotiations, I scanned the room, my heart sinking with each passing second that Julie didn't appear. Then, as if on cue, she walked in from an adjoining room, flanked by two burly men. Her eyes met mine, wide with shock. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at Julie. What is this, Leo? Why is he here? She demanded, her voice trembling. Leo's eyes didn't waver. Mark here has been helping us out. Seems like he wants to save you from this mess. Julie's face paled, and she looked from me to Leo and back again. You've been part of this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Before I could respond, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Panic ensued as everyone realized the police were on their way. Leo grabbed my arm. We have to go, now. But I stood frozen, watching Julie as she struggled with her captors. In a split-second decision, I turned towards her, raising the gun. Leo shouted, but it was too late. I fired at the men holding Julie, hitting one in the shoulder, the other in the leg. Chaos erupted as Julie ran towards me. We fled together, dodging bullets and shouting men, the sound of sirens growing ever closer. Once safe, hidden in the shadows of an alley, Julie clutched at me, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted you involved, Mark. I thought I could handle it, pay off my debts before it got this far. I held her close, feeling the tremor of her sobs. We'll get through this, together. As dawn broke over the city, casting a pale light on the grimy walls, a police car pulled up beside us. But it wasn't to arrest us, it was Detective Harris, a friend from my college days whom I had secretly informed about the meeting. Got your message, Mark? We rounded most of them up, he said, stepping out of the car. And your wife's record? We can wipe it clean, considering her cooperation tonight. Julie looked at me, realization dawning in her eyes. You planned this? I nodded. To end it, once and for all. To bring you back. As we drove away from the scene, the city slowly waking up around us, I knew our journey back from the darkness had only just begun. But together we had a chance. And that was all I needed.